Down, you got dance low. Dance low with me. Get in the frame, dance low with me. Centerville, everybody get up and dance. Centerville, get up and dance with us. Oh yeah. This is the Hey Centerville Show. Yeah. And we are coming to you from our new set. And hopefully we'll be doing the majority of the shows right here on the new Saturday Night Live style set. What do you think about that? I think it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of cool. I'm back behind the desk, all Mr. Behind the Desk.
Mr. Important.
I'm Doug Side, and of course I have Mr. Jeff with me as always. And we have some late-breaking news. I've shaved the head. And Jeff had brought it to my attention to, hey man, don't bother growing the hair, you're going bald.
I didn't say that.
I actually, so yeah, you're like, dude, I mean, either way, you're going to be bald, it doesn't matter. And so, you know, I actually went out and bought one of those mirrors that you hold, the handheld, so I put behind, you know, I could check through, you know, look, see the back of my head and everything. And so, yeah, I shaved it. Yeah. It's the dome back here, and it's starting to thin. But you know what? When it's shaved like this, you can't tell. I have a full head of hair. I have a full head of hair.
It's just very short.
It just gets thinner as it gets longer, or something. It's whatever. I don't know. We've got Meleia Jean here today to sing for you. So let's go to the studio real quick, and here's a song from Meleia.
If all the raindrops were lemon drops and gumdrops, all the rain that would be standing aside with my mouth open wide. If all the raindrops were lemon drops and gumdrops, all the rain that would be. If all the sunflakes were lemon drops and gumdrops, all the sun that would be standing aside with my mouth open wide. If all the sunflakes were lemon drops and gumdrops, all the rain, all the sun that would be.
Wow. I love her. So that could, like, oh, I love her. All right, Centerville, give her a hand. Let's give her a hand. Amazing performance. We've got a great show lined up. We're heading over to City Hall right now to visit with Enfys McMurry and talk a little bit about her book. So let's get over to City Hall. Centerville, we will be right back. All right, we've made it to City Hall, and I am here with Enfys McMurry, the author of Centerville, A Mid-American Saga. Enfys, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Pleasure.
Just amazing, amazing.
All mine. The people of this community have got the most extraordinary history. It all started with Lottie Wilson. I was teaching English out at Indian Hills Community College. She came to my office one day and said, every time I visit a city or town anywhere around the world, they have a historic walk around the town. Enfys, would you consider doing that for Centerville? Now, I taught English, and if you teach English properly, it means every single weekend you're grading papers, academic papers, essays, book reports, you name it. And so I hesitated and said, when did this town start? She said 1846. The town I come from in Wales, which is called Cowbridge in the southern part of Wales itself, almost near the coast, its history predates the Romans by 2,000 years. So with true European snobbery, I thought that bit of research will take me 5 minutes, and I said yes. Instead of which I gave up the job, and for 10.5 years until the completion of this, I've been at work every single day doing the story of this town. And I was totally blown away by what I was finding out. At first I did a sort of a basic tour of the town. And even then, I was thinking, this happened in Centerville? That person came from Centerville? So that so intrigued me that I knew I had to give up the job and concentrate 100% on getting it done, which I did. How I did it was slightly illegal, and that is the local library are not supposed to let you go home with the microfilm readers, you know, the microfilms of the history of the town. But I knew the only way I was really going to put the history of the town together was to read every single newspaper which I did without a break.
Wow.
Now, they didn't start the newspapers saving them until about the 1870s. And even then, there was a few breaks. But by and large, from 1870 on, you've got the story. The most unfortunate thing that I found with Centerville is all the newspapers that dealt with the Civil War are missing. It's a bit of a mystery. Nobody knows where they went or how they went, whether they was accidentally thrown out or whatever. But that meant I had to go to Bloomfield, I had to go to Albia's newspapers, I had to go to Corridon newspapers.
Oh, wow.
And then the real advantage was that the Civil War veterans that came back were interviewed. So I could go with their interviews, and one of the men in this town that was in the 6th Infantry wrote a history of the 6th Infantry.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the infantries. So I was able to go through and piece together the story of the men from the Civil War that left and what extraordinary things they did. Then they came back. And even before the Civil War, I knew there was an unusual story in this town. And Doug Jones, who's head of the Underground Railroad for the whole state of Iowa, told me, if I can prove what I found out, the National Park Service is interested. Now you imagine if the National Park Service came into this community, right? Now what was the story? Well, the Republican Party got its beginnings in 1854 in Ripon, Wisconsin. And its whole purpose was to stop slavery spreading into Kansas and into Nebraska. This party then, I knew anybody that was claiming to be a Republican in that day and age, unlike today, I knew that those people were abolitionists. They had to be. They were opposed to slavery.
Right.
Now let's work out a bit about geography. We are sitting here now about 9 miles from the Missouri border. Iowa shares a 250-mile boundary with the state of Missouri. Appanoose County, 32 miles. Missouri entered the Union in 1821 as a slave state.
Right.
Iowa never, 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 never permitted slavery. I knew there had to be an underground railroad. And when I began to discover the story of who these Republicans were in the community, and I looked at their land records, then I knew their land records would begin to indicate, and what I'm 99.9% sure I found out is they deliberately bought land next to each other, creating a safe path, half a mile north of the Missouri border, up to the southern part of Centerville, then round to Hyattsville, which is near Moravia,
Okay.
and then straight east into what was Drakeville, and now we call it Drakesville. And without a doubt, I know what those men did, and I had to find their land records to do it, and I found it in the courthouse. So now then, if we jump forward from the Civil War, and of course a lot of those abolitionists, they went to fight in the Civil War.
Right.
In fact, everybody from Appanoose County, every single one was a volunteer to go and fight. So if we move forward, the men who left for the Civil War were Democrats. Now the two political parties have switched around when it comes to civil rights, right?
Right.
So if you were a Democrat in that day and age, the chances are you supported, it isn't 100% sure, but you almost certainly supported slavery.
Okay.
Republicans opposed it. When those men left to fight in the Civil War, they were Democrats, and they came out almost to a man. They had converted to the Republicans and were devoted to Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln was assassinated, the reaction in this town was horrific. They wrapped the horses' hooves so that as the horses went around the square, there wouldn't be a sound. And they draped the windows with black and had black draped across the main streets into the square.
Wow.
And people spoke in whispers with total respect for Abraham Lincoln. He was adored by the men, especially the ones that came back from the Civil War.
That's awesome. Wow.
Shall I go on now? So now, as I scoot on through the history, right, the next big event that's going to happen in the town is going to be the discovery of coal. When they discovered coal, around about 1870, but at first it was just the odd coal mine or two. Then, of course, with the railroads, 1871 coming into the town, They needed the coal for the railroads. So now there's this huge surge in coal mines. And the coal mines are going to attract coal miners.
Right.
The 1920 census is what makes Appanoose County different to any county in the United States, and I'm prepared to stand by that statement. The 1920 census of Centerville shows immigrants from 40 countries of national origin.
Wow.
Now then, you could say, well, that's true of any town in Iowa, but not a town the size of 8,600.
Not in 1920 either, right? Well, maybe.
So here they all came together. They were living cheek by jowl with each other.
Right.
And with the Italians came the early form of the mafia, which was the Black Hand.
Right.
So the mafia is interested in the town. Crime begins to break out wholesale. With the First World War, the men walking into the courthouse were trying to convert, these immigrants were trying to convert to American citizenship so they wouldn't have to go and fight, until Woodrow Wilson became president.
Oh, right.
And then he calls for them to go and fight. They went to fight in countries where they were born, a lot of them were.
Wow.
Furthermore, we know that there were representatives of the Italian government that contacted Santi Mullany, that's Jim Mulaney's grandfather,
Okay.
and said, you are the representative of the Italians in that town. Find all the Italian men that have been converted to become American citizens and send them back to die for us. A lot of them objected and fought the whole thing, and the Mulanys argued and said, well, at least register. Well, a lot of them went to fight as well. And the British Army sent representatives and said, how many British men in this town are not US citizens? Back to Britain to fight for the British Army.
Wow.
Then, of course, the American Army goes in as well. You see, so all these immigrants, even though they've become US citizens, they're going to fight for America now, right? So they go and fight. They come back, and every single one of them was gassed, including the sheriff of the town, whose name was Goffenbaugh. And Sheriff Goffenbaugh, he kept law and order in this town, and was I pick up from him a kindness and a decency as to how he was dealing with people. I think my favorite story is it was Prohibition, which of course to me is a disaster in American history.
Right, yeah.
Right? And it had terrible effect in this community because you had Italians, Sicilians, Greeks. They all took a glass of wine with their meal.
Right.
And the average number of arrests for illegal stills in every county in Iowa except Appanoose, the average number of arrests for having an illegal still after Prohibition was 20 to 24. In Appanoose County, it was 64.
Wow.
There were illegal stills, you name it, they were everywhere. And the quality of the wine that was produced in this town that they call grappa,
Yeah, that's...
right? The quality, they could sell it for $40 a gallon in New York City. Now remember the date, 1921, $40 a gallon. So, you know, the incentive from a financial point of view is perfectly obvious.
Yeah, I'm going to start making some tomorrow.
Do you know, you should call it Appa Grappa,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Appanoose County Grappa. Anyway.
I'd do it legally if I was going to Centerville, just so you know.
Right. Well,
Just, you know, Chief.
It is legal now, I'm glad to say. Right?
Yeah, you can actually, they make, there's kits that you can buy now. You can brew your own beer and everything.
We've got our own wine-producing people here in this town.
Oh, tons of great wine here, yeah, which is great,
yes.
yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm hooked, like, already. Now, already, I'm ready to go out and get a copy of this book. Now, I know it's available on Amazon.
Yes.
Where else are, you can pick it up locally here, right?
You can, at the museum at the moment. Now, let me tell you what History Press have told me yesterday, and I've told Jim, and I think people will be very interested to know this.
Okay.
History Press phoned me yesterday and said, of all their books on Amazon, now not all the books on Amazon, their books on Amazon,
theirs.
Centerville is the bestseller.
Nice.
So now this is, and I'm getting calls from all over the country.
Oh, wow.
And most of the calls I'm getting are from people that came into Appanoose County. For example, there were 60 Jewish families here and a synagogue, and people have sometimes said to me, there wasn't a synagogue in this town. There was, and I can take you down there at 15th and Terry. And then you see the Stars of David, it's now House of Prayer or something. But when you go past, you can see the Stars of David. That was the local synagogue.
Wow.
60 Jewish families.
Wow.
Now, some of those that moved away have phoned me, and they live in San Diego. And they said, would you consider coming to talk to the Rotary out here in San Diego? I said, absolutely.
Oh,
And
that'd
then
be great.
people have called me from Portland, Oregon, and I have sold 25 copies via Amazon, so maybe this explains the spike. Amazon says, were bought by Bob Ruggles, who went through this school, who gave $1 million for a state-of-the-art science laboratory at Centerville High School.
Right.
He lives in Toronto, Canada. I said, Bob, what are you going to do with 25 copies in Toronto? He said, this baby's going to go across Canada.
Wow.
And now he emailed me yesterday and he said, would you consider coming to speak up here to Romeo is the name of his club. And it is retired old men, and I can't remember what the E and the O stands for, but apparently
right.
And he's passed the book to each one of them, they're reading it, and he wants me to go up and discuss it with them. By the way, you need to know this. I will very shortly now be setting up a website.
Okay.
I'm being urged to do that.
Okay.
And I got a son who will take care of the whole process
Great.
of doing that, right?
Great.
People will be able to read the website under the title of the book, Centerville, a Mid-American Saga,
Right.
or under my name, Enfys McMurray.
Right.
There'll be 2 ways into it.
Right. Make sure once everything's going, just shoot me a call so that we can mention it and get that out
Great.
on InCentervilleIowa.com and mention it on the show
Yeah, that'd be
and
wonderful.
get it up on the
That'd be
ICI
wonderful.
Facebook. Anything that you forgot to mention or you think that's important, let's get that in here now.
Okay.
And start wrapping up. But yeah, let's.
Okay, the murders in the town.
Yes.
Unbelievable amount of murders. People will barely believe the crime rate. You know, there are a couple of people that write for the Iowegian and they in their letters, and they're perfectly good people. I think they think there was a golden age when everybody went to church and did exactly they were told. That is so total historic rubbish. And they will see and I think be quite startled. So it was the crime rate was huge, and people were blaming jazz. They were blaming women bobbing their hair. There were rules against teachers with bobbed hair being hired, right? So there's all this whole mass, right? Now the Ku Klux Klan took the town over. They used the crime as an excuse to come into the town. The Ku Klux Klan took the town over. And the 5 chapters on the Ku Klux Klan, people have told me to send to Steven Spielberg. I said, well, we can dream. I said, right. But anyway, that's a possibility. So it's an enormous story. Now I'm going to jump again because I've got to get through the Depression, the number of homeless that were wandering around.
Wow, really?
But the fabulous turnout of people. Doesn't matter how poor they were, they always had way to help anybody that was still destitute. It would move you to tears what the people in the town did when they were destitute practically themselves.
Right.
Then I jumped to the Second World War. And I got to jump to the Second World War because I've got to tell you honestly, I think it was the favorite part that I wrote. I grew up in Great Britain. I grew up during the Second World War. So therefore, my knowledge of the Second World War has been geared towards Europe.
Right.
I didn't know what happened in the Pacific.
Right.
Half the men from this town served in the Pacific. And a lot of the veterans are still alive. Do they tell their story? No. Let me tell you their story. And I got them finally to talk. I got some of them. There were 5 men from Appanoose County on the first day on Omaha Beach.
Wow.
One of them, I was speaking in Moulton School, and this 10-year-old boy leaped to his feet. He said, are you trying to tell me there was somebody from Moulton on the first day on Omaha Beach? I said, yes. He said, who? I said, Richard Southern. I think they were beating a path to Richard Southern's door.
Boy.
Then Joe Coates in town. A lot of people.
Okay.
Do you know Joe?
I know of him. I don't know that we've met.
Joe died a couple of months ago.
Oh.
But Joe was on Omaha Beach on day 1. There was and several Bobs here in town were on that beach. One of them was killed. The one from X-Line, he was dragged under by the propeller of the boat.
Oh.
But the service of the men through the Second World War, and they all went, they all served. I don't want to talk about it, but if people just knew the quality of human beings in this town, did they have huge piles of money and drive around? No. But they are in their hearts the most decent, loyal people that you will ever meet in your life. Take somebody like Royal Simmons. Royal Simmons wouldn't cheat you for anything in this world. And Royal served. When he talked to me, he said, Enfys, I was a medic. I said, why? Well, he said, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I said, what does that mean? Well, he said, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist and your country calls you, you serve. And you serve on the front line, but you can't carry a gun. So he said, they try and put you in the medical corps. And he said, I was on Bougainville. I didn't know what Bougainville was because it's in the Solomon Islands in the Pacific.
Okay.
I know now because
Right.
I've read it all up,
Right.
right? As I walked out of the door, Royal said, my brother Ray, who's deceased, had a heck of a story. But he said he wouldn't tell anyone. I said, no one? Well, my niece out in Seattle got it out of him. I said, have you got a number? My telephone bills, believe me, what I've gone through. I phoned her. She said, yeah, Ray had a heck of a story. He was a medic. Not only was he on the first day on Omaha Beach, the first wave, when everybody's wiped out. He said he's no idea how he got across that beach, but he got into an elevated position and started administering sulfur and plasma, which is what he was required to do. The first man they brought to him was so badly wounded, he said there was nothing I could do, so I moved to the others. He said, I administered sulfur and plasma. I put that in Omaha Beach. Then I put an epilogue to the whole book right at the end. Ray went back to check on the first one and found he was still alive, so he gave him plasma. Then he realized the guy was a German. And the niece said, Ray, did that upset you? He said, for a few seconds, but my job was to preserve life. 20 years pass. Ray is working in St. Louis, Missouri. A man walks up to him on the street and says, I know who you are. I'll never forget your face. You saved my life on Omaha Beach, even though I was a German.
Oh my God, wow, that must have been crazy.
I've moved to the United States. I've become an American citizen. I put that as the epilogue right at the end.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Somebody shut up now.
I'm about ready to cry myself. I know my eyes are watering.
Oh,
on
I
that
tell
one.
you, I cried and cried. A lot of the book, how the town overcame the Ku Klux Klan. I sat there.
Now that was during your research you did the you did the talk at the courthouse about
Yes.
that, right? We did those videos.
I did it on the mafia. At
On
the
the
courthouse.
mafia, that's
I
was
did
the
the
mafia at
the
the
murders, the crime rate.
Right.
That's what I did at the courthouse, in the
Okay, that was the
courtroom,
one,
which was
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah, we did those videos. Those are still getting watches on YouTube. That was
Good.
awesome. And now I learned a lot out of the history, and really got me more bugging Lisa Eddy here and there about stuff. Hey Lisa, what about this or what about that?
I know.
But yeah. Enfys, thank you so much,
Oh, it's a pleasure.
for
It's
being
a
here. And Centerville, I know a lot of you have already read the book. If you haven't, it's around locally. Does J&K have any copies left over there?
I think he might still.
But
what is
the
happening
museum-
is, as long as I'm selling them out of a box, I can do that. But the minute it becomes retail, they have to get the books from History Press.
Right, they have to go.
Right,
Okay.
and they can do it. The History Press is wonderful. There are boxes of 12, and they'll get them almost within a day or so from UPS.
Okay.
Okay?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much
Okay.
again.
Pleasure again.
Awesome, and I'm sure we'll visit again soon. Centerville, we've got a couple minutes here with the mayor, a couple quick city updates for you from Jim Sr. So we're gonna go right to Jim now.
I'm Jim Sr., Mayor of Centerville, and I have just a few things, about 16 things I'd like to touch on. We've been very busy as a city lately, and we have some challenges. One of our challenges is being overcome because we are submitting our budget this year on time, and that's the first year in 3 years that we've submitted the budget on time. There will be a meeting March 12th for the public to come and see our budget. And if they have any input and think there's too much money somewhere, not enough elsewhere, they then will have, the public will have their opportunity to speak to that. Safe Routes to School program is going ahead. A lot of people say, oh, it's dead, it's not coming back. That's not true. The streets, we are going forward with our street paving projects, and there'll be some probably some news coming soon on the litigation that was filed against Centerville on that. We're spending millions of dollars on our sewers, and a lot of people say, oh my gosh, why are you spending so much? Because that they weren't kept up and maintained like they should have been in the past, and now we're having to make up for that. There is a new company coming to town, Shark Fin, that's going to provide 15 jobs. They're going to build a small building out in the industrial complex. The airport project is going forward. Soon an offer will be made to the people who have land, who own land around the airport to be purchased from them to make the airport a better airport. Randy Markuson, unfortunately, resigned from the city council, and that's really kind of a loss for us. However, he did it for darn good reasons. His family really needed him, and without going on and on. But he will have to be replaced. The city council decided last night that they will be appointing someone, and if you want to be appointed to that position, write up a little 1 or 2 page resume. Doesn't even have to be fancy or anything to it. Bring it in City Hall and you will be considered. Royal Simmons was mentioned by Enfys, and I got to tell you, Royal also resigned from his position, and he's always done such a wonderful job for this community. I have a lot of respect for that man, and he assured me that even though he's resigning from the Historical Preservation Committee, that he will be available for other projects, and he is involved in the Bob Committee. Citizen of the Month was named last night. It's Rita Matkovich. Rita is one of those people that just gives and gives and gives. She keeps all her properties, she's a major landlord in Centerville, keeps all of her properties neat and clean and well repaired, and she loves the people that live. You know, she takes care of some of them. So anyway, along with 100 other things Rita does for this community. Corey Gooden now has been appointed as our temporary interim administrator, and he's doing a wonderful job. He worked his tail off for us, and that's one reason we got the budget that's going to be available to the public March 12th.
All right, Centerville, well, that's our show for today. Jeff, come on the set. Are you coming on the set, Jeff? Enfys, thanks again. Centerville, we love you, and we'll see you next week on the Hey
Centerville
Show. Yeah, we love you, Centerville. See you next week.